Good morning, afternoon, or evening, everyone, and thank you for participating in our first of a series of Operator Connect webinars. My name is Darlene Smith, and I'll be your host and TechVision presenter for today. In this particular webinar, we're going to be discussing the Operator Connect program from the initial stages of self-nomination through the available services that TechVision has to offer for onboarding. Our next webinar, which is currently scheduled for November 9th, will go deeper into the actual onboarding activity. So stay tuned for registration announcements in the next week for that event. We will begin our webinar this morning with the Microsoft team discussing Operator Connect's value and benefits. Then I will discuss both our processes and services available for onboarding. Throughout this webinar, you can submit your questions in the chat space, and we'll address as many of your questions as we can, since we plan for 20 minutes of Q&A at the end of this webinar. And finally, we're also going to be recording this call to make sure it's available to everyone next week, so you can share it for people who could not attend today. And so with that, I'd like to go ahead and hand it over to Tamor with Microsoft to begin this discussion. Tamor?
Yeah, thanks, Darlene. So thanks everybody for joining. I think it's a really interesting time here at Microsoft for us. For a few reasons. Of course, Operator Connect and the GA launch for Operator Connect is top of our mind since we passed this milestone. It's hard to believe it's almost a month ago now. Mattia is going to talk to us a lot about Operator Connect in general. But I also wanted to sort of talk a little bit about the team's momentum that we're seeing. Darlene, if we could advance the slide.
Sure.
We've seen tremendous growth in our team's calling ecosystem, right? One of the things, we've seen tremendous growth in Teams all up. If you think about, in the past year and a half, of course, due to the pandemic, a lot of businesses, a lot of companies have had to digitally transform to meet the needs of their employees from working from home, working from remote locations, and as they come back to work to have a hybrid workplace environment. I think a lot of our organizations are in that space. And so it's been really fantastic to see the growth. If you listen to some of our earnings calls, if you listen to some of our announcements that we made at various different conferences, we're at about 280 million Teams commercial seats worldwide, which is a fabulous number. If you think about where it was in January of 2020, before all of this started, we were at about 15 to 17 million. So to see that kind of growth, more than 10x growth, is absolutely fantastic. And of course, with the calling piece as well, as customers figured out that their point PBX solutions that leveraged perhaps hard phones or location-specific things, as they became kind of not necessary as people were working from home most of the time, they were turning to solutions like Teams to be able to be productive, collaborative, and communicate from the same application, from the same sort of interface with the same identity, and so on. And so we've seen some fantastic growth in the calling ecosystem as well. We announced recently 80 million monthly active Teams phone users. These are people who use Teams to make calls. That's a fantastic number. We surpassed 1 billion calls in a month over Teams, placed over Teams, received and placed. That's pretty fantastic as well. And interestingly, we also saw significant growth in direct routing. Direct routing, as you know, we have multiple ways for our teams to connect to PSTN services. Calling plans is one idea. Direct routing is another. And of course, Operator Connect is our newest foray into that. But direct routing grew at a tremendous rate, much faster than calling plans, which told us that there's a lot of customers, a lot of enterprises that want to connect their own existing PSTN into Teams. They want to have their operator contracts. They want to keep their phone numbers. They want to do various different things. And so therefore, there's never been a better time to have a solution like Operator Connect, which allows our telcos to be much closer partners with us and deliver a lot more value to our customers. So just wanted to sort of set the stage with how important it is. Within Microsoft, we're calling this or dubbing this the year of the phone. I don't know if you've heard that before or not, but we've said it in various different circles. Super important for us. We're creating a whole go-to-market around our partners, around our customers, offerings, et cetera, to really accelerate Teams Phone this year. And so with that, without further ado, I'll hand it over to the man of the hour, Mattia, to talk us through some of the Operator Connect fundamentals that we've got. Over to you, Mattia.
Awesome, and thank you, Taimur. Great introduction. Hey, everyone. My name is Mattia Tocco. I'm one of the PM leads in Microsoft Teams, and my team looks after Operator Connect, direct routing, and some of the edge component. Probably some of you are familiar with the PS Team Hub. That's the kind of the scope of my team. And Taimur was mentioning like the earning calls, all the great progress that we are seeing. In that earning calls, one of the topics that was also mentioning is exactly Operator Connect. So we want to spend some time with you for talking about what there is actually behind Operator Connect, and why we put this in place. What's actually the value proposition for that? And then later on, Renee and Darlene will talk about the process, like for getting within the Operator Connect. So in general, when we started this adventure from a Microsoft perspective, we start looking at all the areas that we could improve for an integration perspective. And there are a few components that we had in mind. Like I'll start touching from this and say, okay, there is room for opportunities. If we look at the interconnection we have, how we provision the number, how we manage like a customer in general, and we start putting together a framework, which then at the end we call Operator Connect. Now, the low-hanging fruit was really delivering calling, which is what you do also with the R today. But that's not the final and end goal. Like we built a framework, we will deliver calling for user and auto attendant right now. That's what is GA today. But the plan is actually to extend to additional service. You probably already heard the Enterprise Connect that we announced, audio conferencing that will basically sit on top of Operator Connect. Plus, we have other ideas and services that we want to develop with our partners. Now, that's one component. So how do we improve this integration? But the second key component is that really when we build Operator Connect, we built a gated program. Like Operator Connect is not open for everyone. We want to make sure that only operators can get into this program. And at the same time, even operators have a bar of requirements that needs to be met. One of those, for example, having a direct billing with us in all the regions that we serve with a specific architecture, having service agreement with us, so back-to-back service agreement. Sorry, back-to-back service agreement, having a support model with us, and so on. So all of this is mostly for setting a bar in the market in terms of quality. So it's really important. We really care a lot that this one is an enterprise-ready service that is reliable, and the support model basically across our companies can really deliver a good service for our customer. Now, this is different from direct routing, for example. Direct routing is a feature which is great. Like Taimur was talking about the growth and so on. But at the same time, I could put like some SBC in my garage tomorrow. I could deliver a service. Will that be a good service? Probably not. And we don't have this differentiation in the market. So Operator Connect will come with a brand of quality. And we really care about this. And you will see that when I talk about customer value proposition, this is one of the points that we always touch on. All right, if we can move to the next slide. So where Operator Connect fits. So if you look at our stack, moving like from the Teams phone, which is our cloud PBX, it's still the base. Also from a licensing perspective, like Operator Connect does not introduce any additional license for a customer. If they have phone system, they will be able to acquire the number from you as operator, send the number to a user, and make a receive code. So our base is Teams phone. With our team and partner within Microsoft, we are always evolving Team phone capabilities that we are able to deliver and so on. But that will be the base. On top of that, we have three modalities for integrating calling within Teams. Microsoft calling plans that you are familiar with, direct routing, which is the other extreme, and Operator Connect that now sits in between these two capabilities. What I like to say usually when I explain this, either internally or externally, is that Operator Connect brings the same flexibility of direct routing in terms of enabling a customer to select the operator of their choice, but at the same time, the same simplicity of calling plans. So that sits in the middle. It's a fully managed solution. Customer, we don't expect them to have anything on-prem. We don't expect them to configure anything in their tenant other than assigning the number to the user. I have another slide after this. I will talk a little bit more about this. But for completing the picture, all the peripherals that we work with, all the hardware, and the great innovation that is coming also from that space, basically sits on top of these modalities. So if you take a phone, a phone, if you take a conferencing device and so on, all of those will still work with these stacks or this stack of possibility for integrating voice with the Microsoft Teams. And of course, what makes all of this complete is our set of partners. I really care about this column, the number 4 that you see on the right. I've been working like Microsoft 14 years and actually with partners for my whole life. So for me, it's really important from the SIs and MSPs to the integrator to the operators that here play a crucial role when we talk about Operator Connect, OEMs, and so on. But this whole ecosystem is fundamental for making all of this work. So we really care about cultivating and moving forward. And Operator Connect goes exactly in this direction. All right, if we can move to the next slide, please. All right, so in general, I will not spend much time here. Like this one is more for you, like after the call, if you want to read. But in general, one point I want to touch on is coverage. When we think about direct routing, again, Taimur mentioned like the growth before, but we are really seeing adoption across 180 markets. So we don't talk for a direct routing about coverage. We talk about where actually direct routing is in place today. And direct routing is in place for more than 180 countries, which means that customer in more than 180 countries decided to leverage Operator Connect for integrating their on-prem PBX with their infrastructure, or in some cases, some DR as a service solution provided by partners. Now, Operator Connect that was just released has been released with 22 operators that you can find basically in our operator directory that Tim can post basically the link into the chat. And those operators cover 60 markets today. The objective, of course, working with you and many other operators is to onboard additional operator, increase this coverage, but over time also increase the level of services that we provide. So that's kind of the path that we are taking. Then we have Microsoft calling plans for a customer that wants to have our Microsoft all-in solution. Microsoft calling plans are covering 33 markets. That could be a viable path as well for a customer. The beauty of all of these is that these 3 offers can coexist together. So if I'm a multinational customer and I want to have Microsoft calling plans in my small subsidiary in Italy because it's fully Microsoft serves, I want to have a single bill, I'll go for Microsoft. I could have Operator Connect in the US because I'm working with strong operator in the US. I want to make sure I keep my relation. I'm really happy with them. I can use Operator Connect. I could have basically in UK, on-prem IPPBX that I didn't really depreciate yet, and I want to keep my return on investment of that, so I could integrate that using direct routing. So all of these can coexist in the same tenant, and it's an important thing because we want to meet the customer where the customer is in their journey to introduce calling capabilities within Teams. Right, so moving to the next slide. And that's probably would be also my last slide before transitioning to the rest of the team. I talk with you right now about mostly what's basically the idea behind integrating with us as operator, but what does that translate in terms of customers? Before I get in each one of the points, let me say that I talked with many customers during the last year, and I can tell pandemic shift like how customer thinks about voice. There is more and more like the desire to have a voice service, but in reality without having close to none on-prem footprint. And that people could jump immediately and say, oh well, that's like an SMB thinking. But in reality, many of the enterprises that we were talking with gave us this feedback as well. They want to get to a point where it's enough for me. I don't want to have like a deeply voice expert in my company. I can be managed to who it does that basically for years and can deliver a great service. And that's basically what we are establishing with Operator Connect. serving specifically that specific desire. There are also cases where with Operator Connect, some on-prem infrastructure could be integrated as well, but I'll not get there into these details right now. So basically, which are the main value proposition that we bring to customers? First of all, I mentioned this before. I have a customer, I have a relation with an existing operator. I want to keep that. Or I'm a customer, I'm looking for a new operator. I have a good operator that looks like cheaper than whatever else I could get. That could be my way to go. So it gives the flexibility to select the operator of choice, either for keeping a contract or for establishing a new relation. Deployment is another key aspect. For how all of these work today, you establish a partnership with an operator from our portal. You go to the operator portal, you acquire the numbers, those numbers show up in our portal. So there is this level of integration with operators that happens through API and rigorous processes. So you can really set up your infrastructure in minutes. Like you set up from the portal, you say, yeah, I want to work with the Matthias operator. Then you go to Matthias portal, you order the number will be there, in a matter of minutes. So that's where we are and where we want to get in terms of simplification. Why simplification? Because at that point, the customer doesn't need to configure anything. Like those of you that are coming from the R, you probably know that you need to set up FQDN, you need to set up gateway, you need to set up voice policy, PSN usages, and so on. That doesn't happen with Operator Connect. The moment the numbers are in the tenant and you assign a number to a user, the user will be able to make a receive call. So sometimes we refer to this as a hands-off approach for voice. That's basically the simplicity that we're talking about here. And of course, saving in infrastructure. As I mentioned before, customers that embrace like a full cloud solution and managed service by you as operator doesn't really need to have investment in on-premises hardware. So that would be basically moving from CapEx to OpEx, and many of our customers really appreciate this model. And the fourth one, which is the last but not least, is what I was describing before. So setting a bar of quality when it comes to reliability and support. That's really, really important. When you will hear us, yeah, these are our requirements. We expect you to have A, B, and C. It's not like we do that because like we are, just finding something to put in there. We really care about heavy reliability and support. So we don't compromise on many things that could impact this specific area. If someone says, well, I don't want to have a direct meeting with you. I want to go through internet. And that's something we don't really accept. But just because we want to make sure our connection is reliable also if there is congestion or we have deterministic path between us and you. So those are all key things, and we really care about like having a reliable and with high level of support solution. So that's pretty much it from a product perspective. So we can probably transition to the next slide, and I will also transition to Renee Darlene for covering basically the next part of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you both, Tamar and Matej. I appreciate that. Yes, so let me begin by introducing TechVision. For those of you who don't know, TechVision has been in business for like 20 years now, and we've been working with Microsoft since 2008. We've been providing interoperability and certification testing in the unified communication space for a very, very long time. From the OCS and LCS days, as you can see, back in 2008 to today, we work very closely with Microsoft program managers. We've assisted in building certification programs and engaging their partner ecosystems. We've completed over 500 interoperability and certification tests for their ecosystem partners and currently support about 15 programs for Microsoft Teams today. Including, obviously, our latest, the Operator Connect Onboarding verification. And how does TechVision work? Our approach is what we call the TechVision 360 model. We provide a wide variety of capabilities to our customers through these three pillars. And what are these? These are our automation, for example, which can automate Teams calling testing. our engineering team, who has deep knowledge, of course, of Microsoft Teams with years of experience performing certification and interoperability tests. And of course, our lab, where we provide on-demand access to platforms where we can help eliminate high infrastructure costs for customers. These resources combined help our customers, as you can see at the top there, reduce costs, improve quality, and go faster. So now let's dig into the meat of this presentation, which we're going to talk about here, the engagement process. And as you can see on the top of this line here, this is the Microsoft element of the engagement. The center line is the operator themselves, and then down here in the red, that's TechVision. So here we're going to review both the Microsoft and TechVision steps. And I'm going to ask Renee to go ahead and start with this, because at the beginning, of course, is when you nominate your organization through Microsoft. And with that, Renee, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and go ahead and go through this?
Sure. Thank you, Darlene, for that intro. Renee Law here. I work with the program management side for Operator Connect. So as Darlene mentioned, just the meat to the engagement process, the first thing that each operator should do, if you haven't done already, is nominate your organization. I believe there's a link provided here within this PowerPoint. We can also post that in the chat as well. Once we receive the application, please give us a few weeks, because we will review your application. We have quite a bit to go through, about 3 to 4 weeks, and we will provide guidance on next steps. And part of the next steps, will include that you do sign an OC program agreement. So we would provide that after we send out the introductory email. Upon the OC program agreement, and in parallel, we would expect that you would be working with TechVision to complete any necessary or commercial arrangements with them. From there, both teams can provide additional documentation related to any onboarding specific requirements and guide you through the process. But we do require that before any information is shared, that the OC program agreement is complete. So Darlene, did you want to take them through the TechVision side of the process?
Yes. So once you receive that acknowledgement and you are introduced to TechVision, an account manager is going to go ahead and reach out to you and complete the commercial agreements. Because for a lot of service providers that we work with or operators, we may or may not have a master services agreement. So we want to knock that out really quickly. Then, of course, we're going to go through, the account manager is going to go through with each of the operators all of the options, the services that we have available to actually go through the onboarding process. But we won't actually begin any actual onboarding until, as Renee said, that participation agreement is signed. So that's kind of that is the milestone marker that has to be completed prior to the onboarding project itself. And then depending on the onboarding package that you select, there'll be activities completed by both you and TechVision with project points assessed. And that's what these little tick marks are here. Regardless of which project or which package an operator chooses from a service perspective, those project points will be assessed throughout your onboarding, whether you're doing it yourself or you're having TechVision do it for you. And then, of course, with the final validation being completed by TechVision. And then once we complete that final validation, we provide the results back to Microsoft for confirmation. And Renee, can you talk a little bit about the process once we provide that confirmation back to you, back to Microsoft?
Specific to the onboarding process itself, there are a couple of steps, right? Obviously, once the agreement's signed, you would be working with TechVision to complete the initial onboarding to get access into the Operator Connect APIs and systems. We would then expect that you go through kind of a lab integration and a production integration phase. There are certain specific requirements that we do ask all operators to meet that we would likely, we'll certainly dive into more detail during the next webinar. But once we receive the initial bulk of information from TechVision, we would release you to become part of our preview stage. And during that preview stage is when we have specific alignments related to SLA. The whole kind of genesis from an Operator Connect perspective is to really make sure that we provide that joint consistent customer experience with all of our operators. So what we have included in the program agreement are specifics related to making sure that our voice quality is at a certain bar. And that way we know that our customers have that consistent high quality experience. So once you're in preview, kind of the next gate is to remove that preview tag at some point, right? And that can take an operator, 3 weeks. It could take them maybe 2 months. It's really on the operator's timeline on when they would have enough traffic to enable us to validate SLA metrics. And those SLA metrics, if you're asking, that's all part of the upfront program agreement. So you would see that when you get the agreement, what our specifications are and our operational excellence guidelines.
Thanks, Renee. And so as Renee mentioned, this segment right here, the onboarding project itself, we're really going to take a deep dive into this and more really drill into the project checkpoints and everything, and making sure that there's a really an opportunity for a lot of the operators to ask some questions in order to set themselves up for success when they actually engage in the onboarding project. And like I said, that event is November 9th, and we will be sending out a link to sign up for that webinar. And that webinar will be hosted by our engineering team. So, okay, so moving into what services TechVision has to offer. So TechVision's onboarding validation packages span from the most basic service where the operator requires minimal engagement from TechVision, all the way through to our white glove service where TechVision provides a dedicated SME, subject matter expert, to perform the onboarding on your behalf. All of these onboarding packages include those checkpoints I mentioned, and the final verification test is performed by TechVision based on the Microsoft specs. Our TechVision account managers will reach out to you once we've been gone through that introduction process, as we showed in the prior slide, and we will actually spend some time determining what your requirements are in order to help you determine which service package is best going to suit your needs. And then we'll drill into these packages in more detail on that call. Finally, I know this seems like this went by really fast, but we certainly still want to leave time for Q&A. What are the steps for success? What can you do now? Primarily, go to the Microsoft Operator Connect website, and the links are all going to be in here when we send this deck out to everybody who's registered. Go to the website. There's quite a bit of information there. Be sure to read the information and ask questions. And then complete the participation requirements. As Renee said, get that nomination information in as soon as you can. And then as soon as you are provided that introduction to TechVision from Microsoft, engage us quickly so we can start spending some time going through those program service packages. And we also have a program landing page, which we've included this link here so that you can go and see what all is available and some of the additional steps that are required. To go back and review what we've talked about, we've shared with you the Operator Connect value statement. We've talked about the steps to engage to begin that onboarding process, as well as the options that TechVision's got available for you from a service perspective. As I mentioned, there'll be a deeper dive webinar on November 9th. We'll be sharing that registration, and we'll also share this deck with everybody who registered for this. In sharing this deck, I'm going to include a contact page that's going to give you all the TechVision contacts that you can reach out to, as well as our website. The recorded event that I'm presenting right now is going to be, the recording is going to be uploaded to our website, so you can share this recording and be able to share both the Microsoft comments and the TechVision comments with your colleagues who were not able to attend today. So with that, let's open the floor for questions. What is the typical time frame you're seeing for a service provider to get through the onboarding once the agreement is signed? Renee, you already answered that. Can everyone, hopefully everyone can see the question. Renee said it can vary depending on what the resources each operator has for API development and networking. The shortest time frame is 4 to 5 weeks. Andy Lee also asked a question, and hopefully everyone can see the answers on these in the chat space. Are there any additional questions? Amita, were you able to see any other questions typed in?
Nothing else on the space. We just got one. There's a question from Enrich Europe to TechVision. Do you offer support also in Europe?
Yes, we do. We have a TechVision account team in Europe, and they will be able to support that, any of our European operators. Any other questions? You're welcome. Okay. Well, if anyone thinks that, oh wait, so we are obliged to buy a service package from TechVision. This is mandatory. Christoph, it depends if you are an unmanaged, or should we, Renee, would you like to address that, or you want me to address that?
I can take it as well.
Okay.
So if you're a managed Microsoft partner, in that case, Microsoft will have dedicated resources to work with you to onboard you onto Operator Connect. You are also welcome to engage with TechVision as well, to have sort of both working with you for the validation and so on, for the testing. If you're an unmanaged partner and you don't have a dedicated Microsoft person that's working with you, then you will have to work with TechVision for your onboarding process. Anything you wanted to add to that, Darlene?
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. So well done, Timur. Any other questions? Okay, if anyone thinks of any questions, this team space will be open for at least another 25 minutes. So feel free to add your questions and we'll try to get to them because we've obviously reserved the entire hour for the webinar. And everybody who's registered should be able to still see the responses to these. And like I said, the recording for this call will be uploaded to our website, and I will be sending out the deck that we've shared here. And like I said, please register for the next webinar because we will really take a deep dive into the actual onboarding project itself. With that, I'd like to thank everybody for joining. I was really thinking we would need a whole 20 minutes for Q&A, but I'm glad that we were able to give everybody back a good 20 minutes of their day. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you, Microsoft, for assisting in this webinar. I really appreciate your time.